Welcome, beautiful, authentic action co-creators. I'm Gabrielle, Angel, Lilly, and this is the Authentic Action Podcast, brought to you by Gal Media, FunFast Productions, and the Authentic Action School. Be sure to check out my t-shirts on Teespring as well. I'm super excited to be leaping into our co-created future with this new platform, and I hope we can evolve in our experiences together and apart. Also, I hope that if there is ever anything I can do for you, that you will contact me without hesitation. The opportunities for us to make connections, share perspectives, and create a new paradigm are upon us. This podcast aims to explore what it means to design and live a good life. I hope to provide a platform for diverse ideals and have authentic and entertaining conversations with creative people from many different walks of life. I will be seeking out and speaking to fellow artists, authors, teachers, preachers, builders, paradigm shifters, evolutionary leaders, and transformational speakers who have dreams and ideas about building a better future together. I am particularly interested in mindset, conscious community building, healing through flow states, and tapping into the universal creative energy potential. My guest on today's episode is certainly a fine example of a person who has designed and lived his life by his own design. He's a prolific songwriter with over 600 original songs. He's also a composer, director, teacher, performer, and author of no fewer than 20 keyboard instructional books. If you have ever been to Isotopes Park in Albuquerque in the last 15 years, you've probably heard him playing the organ there. He is a music director at NDI, a nonprofit music education program, and pianist at the Unity Spiritual Center in Albuquerque. I invite you to enjoy this conversation about creativity, songwriting, and riding out the current waves of uncertainty we are all experiencing in the face of our current widely publicized pandemic. And I'm pleased to introduce the talented, witty, and creative Todd Lowry. Welcome to the Authentic Action Podcast. Thank you for joining me, Todd.
All right.
I tend to just want to jump right in like we were doing,
That's
but
fine.
I like to have that little part in there. So I think talking about your performing and generally not being nervous is a great place to start. So you want to continue?
Well, I don't. I'm usually never nervous. I mean, because I perform at. Well, I perform sometimes at the ballpark. I play organ at the baseball games, and sometimes there's 13,000 people there.
How long have you been performing it?
I've been doing that for 16 years, and I've been performing at my church for 21 years, and it's a very church on the. Some people think it's a weird church, but it goes good with me because it doesn't really have any doctrine that I disagree with, and I've been performing in clubs and stuff since I was 15 years old, which is about 40 some years, so.
Yeah, and you're a prolific songwriter. I happen to know at least that little bit about you.
I'm a very prolific songwriter. That's a problem because I think I've recorded about 125 songs, which means I have about this. I'm only guesstimating, but I believe I have at least 600 to go. So, I don't know how I'm going to get those recorded. Because it does take some money to do that. So.
It can, yeah. Although it's getting easier, right? But yeah,
well, I could record them on
your iPhone, right?
or a little handheld recorder or something. But
which may be better than nothing for posterity. But I hear what you're saying.
Well, and I'm sort of starting to think about posterity because I'm getting older and sometimes people my age pass away.
Yeah. As far as I can tell, none of us are getting any younger.
Well, I feel good, but I've only started thinking about that in the last 5 years, maybe.
Yeah. So you have a little bit of a sense of needing to record.
Yeah, needing to because I've written all these songs, but that doesn't mean that anybody's ever really even heard them or anything. I mean, I know them, in order for other people to hear them, they have to either be performed or recorded or put into sheet music or something, so that, I mean, preferably a good recording, like it, not just a crappy one that I made at home, but although I can make pretty good recordings, but maybe a studio recording. So at least I leave something, because I've been really that's been the main focus of what I've done really my whole life. I mean, I've done everything else. I mean, I've performed almost every kind of music, and I mean, not every kind, but very wide variety. And I've had these odd jobs, like working director of business affairs at the world's largest print music publisher and stuff like that, and worked at theme parks and written books, and currently I've worked for a nonprofit kids dance program for 21 years. So I have a wide variety of things I've done, but really the thing I've always been most interested in is my own creative pursuits. I mean, because I really feel like I'm compelled to this part. That's what it's something. There's something unique, in me that just needs to do that. That's what I've born for, or something. I mean, I can have other jobs, and I've been lucky to have only my whole life, really, since I was 15. All I've really done is music jobs, but so that's, I guess, lucky in some ways. But that doesn't necessarily mean they were great jobs. I mean, sometimes I'm like really bored. I've been really bored. At least I remember playing in Holiday Inn bands when there was such a thing as a Holiday Inn band, but and just going, like, watching the clock and going, what am I doing this for?
Wasn't fulfilling that. I'm fascinated by the difference between skill building and that creative spark that many of, I think maybe all of us have, but some of us have had the fortune to be able to spend some time feeling the difference of, and then the skill building, while can be nice, and it's not, I mean, I'm not saying you were skill building while you were bored at all, because that's something different too. But
I have the skill to do, I figured I've done 1,200 wedding services and receptions, and who knows how many cocktail parties. I mean, probably thousands of them, and I'm good at that, but that's not necessarily what I would choose to do, given
I'm curious, speaking of choice, was there a point in your life where you set that intention? I was telling you I'm fascinated by designing our own lives, so was there a point where you said, I'm going to work in music-related jobs, even if they're boring, or did that just happen for you?
Well, I knew there was a choice, because I was familiar with the composer Charles Ives, who is an avant-garde American composer from the early 20th century, and he got a degree in music from Yale or someplace, and he chose to become an insurance agent so that he never had to compromise his music, because he's very avant-garde and wrote stuff that nobody had really was even had heard before, and it's now, even nowadays, I mean, after he's been dead for at least he must have been dead for 100 years, let's say, or maybe not, maybe he hasn't been dead for 100 years, but he chose to become an insurance agent and do music on the side, so he never had to compromise his artistic integrity. I mean, I knew there was a choice, but I just chose to take music jobs, so I guess I shouldn't complain if I get one that's boring or seems kind of useless. I mean,
right. Seems to me you're still building that skill set related.
Yeah.
I
mean, I mean, I've been in some bands that were pretty lame and whatnot, but you're still doing music. There's still some value in that, and you're still trying to play things the right way and all that. So, I mean, I know that for a fact that people in orchestras often get very bored. They may be great musicians, but they do the same repertoire year after year, and that's one of the kind of negative job things about being in an orchestra is that sometimes people get bored with it.
Mm-hmm.
So
So do you think there's a recipe to that creative juice, or that creative space, that place that you get to go where you get to feel that you are being creative as opposed to just rotely doing something that you otherwise love?
Well, I don't know that there's a recipe. I tell you what put a spark under my butt, though, was in 2013, about 7 years ago. I think it was on May 30th or something. I mean, so it's coming almost 7 years ago. And my heart stopped. And just fortunately, I happened to be in the doctor's office, you know, and, you know, he was my endocrinologist, but
Did he say something great right before that happened?
I said, I'm going to faint. I was having an exam, and I said,
Yeah.
I'm going to faint. And he said, well, lie down here. And then my heart stopped. And I woke up, and there was 10 doctors around me. Of course, they're all like endocrinologists or something. They don't know much about the heart. I mean, you know, but in fact, later on, he told me, he gave me chest compressions. He said, that was the scariest thing I'd ever done.
He hadn't done that in a
He'd
while,
never done that.
right?
Well, except maybe in medical school.
Right.
But so it just turned out that I had a heart arrhythmia, and my heart's been stopping. It turned out my heart's been stopping quite often, like at least a couple times a year ever since I was born.
Huh.
And it would just start up again because when I related my history, it turned out I had fainted like way more times than anybody I knew. I would faint, and then I'd come to, and then so my heart was basically. I have a heart arrhythmia.
Is that like an electromagnetic?
Yeah, it's a weird thing. They call it the what do they call it? I can't even remember now. But if you take if you have a heart, what's wrong with me? My brain is not working. But
arrhythmia.
Yeah, it's just a type of arrhythmia. It's like how come I can't remember the name? Because I haven't thought about it.
Right.
But it's an arrhythmia. It's not a serious condition unless it actually stops. So they put a defibrillator in just in case it did stop, and it's never had to fire. So really, I haven't had any problems since then. But it made me realize that, I am human, and that I could possibly,
Right.
kick off at any time, or get in an accident, or my heart could fail, if it made me aware of my mortality. And at that point, I said, it sort of put a fire under my butt, and I thought, well, look at all this stuff that I've been working on that's not done, that I haven't finished, that I have planned on doing, like some people would have a bucket list or something, but I don't have a bucket list. I have a list of projects that I want to do, and that put a kind of a fire underneath, and I've been sort of going great guns since then. But so that was one thing that sort of sparked me, but I don't even know what the question was, but what really sparks me is is just like something in me that compels me to create. Usually music or songs, could be instrumental or songs with words, but occasionally I write stories and stuff like that. But it's mostly music, and I've been doing that since I was 12 years old. I remember the first song I wrote. So there's something in me that just compels me to do that. Because it's not like I've made money from it, but not a whole lot, so I just do it like Van Gogh. I'm comparing myself to Van Gogh now. but he just had to paint.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows why? I mean, he just felt compelled to paint, and he never sold a painting.
Yeah.
Well, I think he sold one painting.
I recently saw a documentary while I was on the plane that recently came out.
Yeah, I believe in his whole life he sold one painting that would now be about worth $100 to us or something.
Yeah.
So I mean, but he painted all that time. I mean, he painted like thousands of paintings. So in comparing myself to Van Gogh, one of the great artists of all time. But that's what there's something in me and probably in most creative people that just compels you to do that. I mean, it's not like if somebody came to me and said, I want to be a musician because I'd like to make a lot of money, or I'd like to be a musician because I want to be famous or something like that, I'd say, no, you're not a musician, because that's not.
Hashtag not a musician. I know that's an awkward interruption. As it turns out, we ended up recording 15-minute segments. So please check out my Teespring t-shirts. I have a brand new one with I am not a musician on one side and hashtag not a musician on the other side, inspired by this conversation. You can check it out at bit.ly/I am not a musician. And now we return to Todd talking about his creative songwriting process.
Creativity
and how you're just compelled. And yeah, I'm fascinated by how some of us seem more compelled than others to have that creative, to dedicate ourselves to that creative self. And I'm one of those people, so it's hard for me to separate, that. I want to believe that all humans have that capacity, and some just haven't tapped into that. And lately there's research out of Silicon Valley about flow states, and I started becoming really fascinated by, tied into my idea of an edutainment or play center or sustainable community center. How could we create spaces and activities and systems that foster more of that in us, basically?
Well, I think everybody has some creativity, and a lot of it, I mean, probably in most people, it's been repressed or suppressed.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people say, well, I wish I could play piano, but I don't have any talent or something. Mm-hmm. Well, anybody can play the piano. I mean, I do believe that some people may have some innate ability or something, but
I like the idea that maybe we have more than one lifetime to work on things. For me, that I don't know, but my mom believes in that, so I was introduced to that idea young, and I think it allows me a framework to believe that that at any point you might start working on a new skill or talent, but that maybe you're born with some, whether it carried from another life or you're just born with it from your genetics. But
I have a good friend who's Buddhist, so she believes in reincarnation and all that, and karma, which carries over from one life to another. But see, if you don't remember it, like if you don't remember your prior lives,
I believe in instant karma, we're all one. But I have a hard time with the debt, with the date that carry.
I don't want it to carry over from 2 lives ago.
It seems, but I do believe we are co-creating. Me personally, I believe we're co-creating this existence, so that any action, the ripple effects of all of our choices are affecting us, I think.
Oh, well, I definitely think everything's connected like that, and I think everybody's capable of being creative. A lot of people don't give themselves any credit for it because somehow it's been shoved down somewhere, and they don't. I mean, a lot of people think they can't do anything, say musical. I mean, I mostly come from a standpoint of music. Like, a lot of people think they can't sing, or they can't play an instrument, or they can't do anything, and that's not true.
Started drawing, same thing.
I don't think that's true. I mean, anybody could do any of that stuff if you just sort of free yourself and let yourself go and get involved in it and trust that you can do it.
Not be afraid to fail, I think.
I mean, because
suck at something at first,
I mean, I have songs that are just sitting in a box somewhere that are just garbage, I mean, and sometimes they may be garbage, and I may pull them out and work on them, and then they may turn into something. They maybe there was really a good thing there. After all, I did think of that my condition is called short QT syndrome.
Okay.
And when you take an EKG, there's something between the Q and the T.
It's a calcium gap.
That doesn't work right.
Yeah.
But
I have a little of that. I'm not a syndrome, but I'm familiar with the calcium.
But anyway, but that did kind of get me more motivated than I was because because it's easy to just have a job and go to the job every day and come home and you don't feel like doing much and I mean I've always been creative, but it was easy to get in a kind of a position where I wasn't really doing what I should have been doing.
I think this current disruption with the pandemic, I know it's not a popular position to take right now because a lot of people are afraid, but I think this disruption of our everyday ho-hum is going to turn out to be a great opportunity for people to find more of that creativity in themselves. To if they're spending 3 weeks at home, maybe they'll sing a little bit or
for me I got lots of projects that I'd like to work on and stuff because I'm pretty much out of work. There's not much they're gonna tell me to do.
Hasn't been a big upheaval for me, but I it's been a process for me to get to this place where it's not an upheaval, and I can see how.
And it's taken me a little time to start because it's only been a few days, kind of like since. I mean, we've had the pandemic for a while, but since they canceled pretty much everything,
we're just in the throes of full panic right now. So I mean, who knows? Make it worse, make it better.
All of my regular jobs have been canceled or at least postponed till indefinitely until till whenever. So I'm just gonna do what I think I should do at the moment. I mean, so I'm going to be working on a bunch of projects. Probably I'll pull out some things.
That will allow you some time to actually work on your songs and record them. Yeah. I have one of my many little mantras I have in my office is finished is better than perfect. And as much as we want perfection, I think
that's a great mantra.
That looming sense of mortality reminds us that sometimes you just got to get it done. You can always redo it again later if you can get around to it.
I'm not into perfection. I do when I do recording, I like to do them in a studio because I like to have. I work with a particular engineer because I like his feedback and I like for him to do all the technical stuff so I don't have to think about it. And but I like to work real fast. And so we just did, we put down 19 basic tracks in one day, I think. And then I finished 5 of them in one day. So we figured with like 2 more days, I'll have a whole album done. And, they're not perfect, but they're pretty
good enough.
Good.
Yeah.
I mean,
I bet you have enough. That's the thing about building that skill and all those rote hours is that then it allows you to come in and
I sort of like little imperfections. So sometimes they turn out to be kind of cool. I mean,
that's the foundation of pretty much all my work. So.
Well, I mean, sometimes if I may hit a wrong note or something and I like it, it may be better than what I wrote.
Well, later you have a polished version, and a lot of times you go back to that little imperfect version and you go, you know what, I really actually like that better. There's something, another thing I'm fascinated, that realness, that rawness, that I call it the wild sometimes, but it's related to what we call imperfection, but it's actually like we were talking about our uniqueness, like that's the most delightful thing about being alive to me in some ways.
I like to do things that
if it was all perfect, if it was all predictable, what would be the point of that?
I mean, my whole thing with music, and I mean my music, not maybe playing a job at a restaurant, but my music is to be myself. I mean, I really believe in being myself because I think everybody's completely unique and may have all kinds of strange things that have influenced them and all that, and I like to be myself, and so sometimes I'm afraid to be myself, maybe because I had some songs I wrote about this should not be going on off, but I have some songs I wrote about Donald Trump. Like I wrote them like 4 years ago, and 4 years ago when he was elected, and I wrote some songs that are pretty opinionated.
Charged.
And, and I've always been afraid to like release them because I know they're going to tick off about half the people, because we happen to be in this situation where
very polarized.
it's very polarized. It's almost half and half, including my brother who's a very smart guy. He and I totally disagree on some stuff, and so I've been afraid to even do anything with them. But now I think I'll just release them. I mean,
it's been an epiphany for me a couple times in my life to realize that sense of freedom has to come with being willing to be hated or disliked, to really take, or it doesn't have to, but to really, to be a creator and be willing to put yourself out there requires being willing to be disliked and even hated to some extent.
Yeah, and I have some strange songs that are just kind of oddball, but that's me. I mean, I am kind of an oddball a lot of times. I mean, I'm very strange. I mean, so I just sort of have to trust myself, my instincts, and just go with whatever I write. I mean, because I've never like sat down and said I'm going to write a hit song or something, or I'm going to write a song that everybody really likes, or I'm going to write a song in the style of my favorite songwriter or something like that. I've never done that because that wouldn't be honest in my opinion. I mean, I just write whatever kind of comes out. I mean, obviously I put work into it, and there's a lot of technique and stuff involved, but ultimately I don't know where the songs come from. They come from some strange place. I can see where I've been influenced by certain things, but I don't know where the songs really come from. I mean,
yeah. See, I have this theory that my best creative works are this a collaboration between something greater than I, the greater universe. I don't really believe in God in the traditional sense, but I do think there's a lot going on that I'm not aware of, and that there might be some greater sense of sentience that it seems like we get when we individuals collaborate with, like, bring your creative energy, your uniqueness to the table and open up to that. It seems like that's where we get these great creative.
Well, that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in people's uniqueness, and everybody's unique. I mean, and that's what I'm interested in. I actually have a church job. I've had it for 21 years, and before that I had another church job, and I've written a lot of songs in that for the church too. But like I said, I go to a church that's very non-doctrinal, and everything can be interpreted kind of like metaphorically the way you want to interpret it. So I write stuff that would be considered really.
My texts are giving me a hard time, aren't they? You can keep on.
I write stuff that would be considered like spiritual or something. But I I'm not really doctrinal as far as when you say the same thing about God and all that.
No,
but it comes from someplace. I mean some of my songs come from this other place, and I don't know what. Maybe from the planet I'm really actually from, or something. I mean, sometimes they just sort of just come out of the air. I've heard a lot of songwriters say that. There's just songs in the air. You just capture them.
Well, that's all the video we're going to get. That's
fine.
Though. That was just backup anyway. So.
There's songs in the air, and you just capture them,
Yeah, I heard, was it Tom Waits or somebody has this account of somebody else talking about pulling a song backwards by its tail. It's kind of a famous account. I can't think of it.
Well, in some ways, I think they're already written out there. If you just find them.
Right. Yeah, out there in the ether is sort of what it seems like to me. And then,
but what I don't do is I don't go. Now I'm going to sit down and write a song. What's like really popular right now?
Right.
Like I've never done that in my life.
Right.
I just write songs that occur to me, and some of them may come from my life, and some of them may just come from some other place.
Mm-hmm. So do you have a routine, a ritual of some sort that allows you that to get into that headspace, or does it just come upon you?
No, I write every which way, and I don't really have a routine, but I do keep if I read anything that's interesting, I'll put it in a folder, and you often come upon song titles,
Mm-hmm.
at least I do.
Mm-hmm.
I come upon a song title, and the whole and it may suggest. I mean, the whole song may be there just from the title.
Mm-hmm.
I just come upon it.
Speaking of things coming up on us, this COVID-19 virus has come in with a bang in 2020, and I bet a bunch of you are probably starting to look for natural solutions to all the extra sanitizing and cleaning that we're all going to be doing for the foreseeable future. I'm happy to say that Sleeping Dragons Company has you covered. We've got Defense 5 oil and other products. Defense 5 oil is a pure blend of essential oils made to be disinfecting and immune boosting. It's based on the Thieves Oil blend, which is a historical, well-known blend. It contains clove, cinnamon, lemon, eucalyptus, and rosemary oils. And you might want to dilute it before using it straight on your skin, although I like to add a drop or two to my hands instead of hand sanitizer. You can find it in our Etsy store at Sleeping Dragons Company, or you can use our bit.ly link, bit.ly/defense5, that's bit.ly/DEFENSE 5. And now back to Todd.
Yeah, as far as songwriting, I write at the piano more often than away from the piano, but I do write away from the piano sometimes. And I write music more. I start with music more often than with words, but sometimes I have started with words. Sometimes I found words that I wrote like 40 years ago in some weird file or something, and written a song from that.
Do you write primarily by yourself, or do you sometimes collaborate?
I've collaborated with about 3 people, I think, and one of them was just a really early thing that was very juvenile. One of them was with a woman who wrote really good lyrics, but she was really hard to work with. I mean, I finally sort of had it when we went into the studio and we started recording one of the songs, and she rushed in and said, no, that's not how, and she didn't trust me because I've been in the studio like a zillion times,
right,
and I've recorded all kinds of things, and she didn't trust me, so I sort of had it with her after that. She was very hard to work with. She was very odd, like many creative people are, but she was too hard to work with. Mm-hmm. And then I've worked with somebody else who really just helped finish some lyrics of mine, because I had the whole song, most of the lyrics, but I just got a block with like filling in the rest of the lyrics, and she helped me with that. Now that thing we created about 3 or 4 good songs, and that's about it. I mean, I don't really like to collaborate with people. It's hard. I mean, unless I mean, most songwriting teams, there's a guy who writes music, or a guy or a woman who writes music, and a guy or woman who writes the words, and it can go either way. I mean, like sometimes it's words first. Bernie Taupin would give jot a bunch of words and don't generally write the music. Sometimes it's the opposite. I think, well, I know for sure that some people write music first, and then the lyricist has to, like, you know, craft the words around the music. Or sometimes they sit together and write a song together. And then there's weird songwriting teams, like Lennon and McCartney is one of the weirdest ones, because they had like maybe 200 songs that appeared on albums for the Beatles, but they only wrote like 18 together, and the rest, sometimes they wrote completely on their own. They're very competitive, so they were competing with each other. Sometimes they wrote completely on their own, and sometimes they'd write like most of a song and ask the other guy for a little help. So they were kind of an oddball songwriting team. But I've never found a partner that I've really, you know, that really I felt really comfortable with. So I do most everything on my own. But a song for me I can write a song in 5 minutes, which, I mean, some songs would come in 5 minutes, and that's the whole song is there. That's kind of like the Bob Dylan method. I mean, because he always says he spends hardly any time on songs, and then there's other ones where I might have started it in 1980 or something, and then I went back to it, or I might have gone back to it every 5 years or something, and then finally I finished it. So, you know, it might have taken 40 years to write. That'd be more like Leonard Cohen or somebody like that. He was. They say that he wrote 80 verses for Hallelujah, because he's kind of insane, you know, like. Yeah. He was apparently.
All my favorite people turn out to be kind of insane.
In fact, speaking of Bob Dylan and Leonard Cohen, Bob Dylan asked him, how long did it take you to write that song? And it took him about 5 years. And he said, it took me a couple of years. Like, you know, because he didn't want to say 5 years because that sounds like too much. And then Leonard said to Bob, how much time did it take you to write that new thing you have? And he said, it took me 5 minutes. You know, like, they were just different. You know, they're just different. But I write every which way. So, you know, words first, music first. At the same time, something I started on 40 years ago, something that takes 5 minutes of my life, you know, it doesn't really, I don't really have a set thing. But I do think you have to work at it. I mean, you have to work on it. I mean, you can't just expect, I don't believe in inspiration per se. Like, I have a friend who has written one album, and she says, I'm just waiting for inspiration. I say, no, you can't wait for, you got to just write, you know, like, yeah, I mean, you know, I don't wait for inspiration.
So with regards to you trying to document, like kind of go back and document, record previous songs, does that interfere with moving, you know, like that's time that you're not then creating new songs, or does it still feel like you're in that creative place?
Oh, I don't think a song's ever done. So if I go back and let's say I created lists of all these projects I want to record, with kind of lists with themes. So there's like, I got 2 lists of love songs and a list of kind of philosophical songs and you know, a list of bluesy songs or whatever, you know, and so some of those would involve songs that are quite old. I mean, and 20 years ago or 30 years ago I might have written it or something. And if I go back and look at that, I'm likely, well, first of all, I'm really surprised usually because it seems like me, you know, it seems like, well, yeah, that's the way I'd write it now. I mean, but I won't be hesitant to make a change or something because I feel like if I can make it better, I'll make it better. You know, so I don't think it's ever done per se. You can always fix it or make it better. So I often, you know, I have some stuff that's from I have some stuff that's on cassette tape. You know, like I have a lot of stuff that's on cassette tape because I was writing songs in the 80s and, you know, we had cassette tapes. And I was listening to some cassette tapes, which I just hope they don't all just
Just disintegrate.
disintegrate,
The last thing.
because and I was going, wow. I listened to one that had 8 songs on it, and I said, wow, that's really good. I mean, and it sounds like me now, like those are good songs. I should re-record those or whatever, you know.
Do you get into the opportunities that new technology are offering? Like not just in the recording from cassette tape to digital, but new instruments, new sound capabilities?
Well, I'm a keyboard player, right? I'm a piano player. I mean, I prefer a piano, but nobody has pianos really anymore. I mean, most studios don't have a piano. In fact, I'm not sure if I know any studio that has a piano around here. Maybe,
it's interesting because they're like free in people's houses because nobody wants to move.
Well,
them,
because because they're big, cumbersome, they're hard to record. Most people use electronic keyboards, and if it has a good piano sound, that's a good substitute. But I like, if you have electronic keyboards, that means you have like all kinds of other stuff. I mean, you have all kinds of things at your disposal. So, that's a nice thing about living now. I'm not really into like. Usually, my rhythm tracks are fairly straightforward. I mean, but I don't really listen to a lot of really new music. I mean, I think I've pretty much heard it all before. I don't really feel like music nowadays has really gone anywhere for like a long time. It's just kind of hung out, and there's some good songwriters out there, and there's some crappy ones, and there's always been good ones and crappy ones. I mean, if you go back all the way to the 60s, it was good and crappy music. The 70s, the 80s, the 90s. I think things started to get weirder in the like late 80s and 90s. 90s was like really grungy, which is not keyboard music. That's guitar music, and it was usually kind of dark,
It's the era I was.
Yeah.
My hometown.
Yeah, well, it was, and that was really not. I wasn't really a whole lot interested in Nirvana and some of those bands, and then in the 2000s, I don't think it's really gone anywhere. I mean, it's just there. I mean, and plus the business has really changed, where people used to buy a lot of CDs. And even in the early 2000s, we used to sell tons of CDs at gigs. Nobody buys CDs anymore at gigs. I mean, and the whole business has changed. I don't think music has the importance to most people that it had in, like, say, the 70s or something. I think it was culturally, like, the expression that music was doing was the most important thing that was happening. I don't think that's true now. I mean, I don't know what it is now. I mean, because there's so much variety of things that we have. Because I'm talking about if you talk about the 70s, we had like 3 channels of television and no video games and no computers and no internet, and music was a
couple radio stations.
Yeah, a couple radio stations, and music was really important. I mean, because I grew up in the 70s. Pretty much, and what did we do? We played in bands, and then when we had free time, we listened to records. That's what we did. So, it's a lot different for kids now. I mean, music doesn't have that importance. It's just another thing. It's kind of like it's cheesecake or something. It's like. Yeah, well, here's some music. Yeah, that's cool.
Similarly, you used to only get cheesecake once a year for your birthday. Now you have it every day if you want. So.
Well, it's just, I don't think it's as important anymore, because there's just so much that, and I don't know what it's like to be a kid now, because I think you'd be so overwhelmed by things. There's like so much junk coming at you, like with the internet and computers and video games and a million channels of TV and stuff. I don't know. So. I feel like this is not the greatest era for music, but that's what I do. So,
Yeah, so what is your plan, or what have you been doing for your own recording? Like, you still putting them on CDs? You doing digital? You uploading somewhere?
That's a good question. I have some, like, you can go on my website, but it's not whole. I don't have, you can't download them yet.
I've been using YouTube to document my
Well,
life.
I have some stuff on YouTube, and I've made some videos. That's a whole other thing, because if you put in time making a video, then you start getting into, like, oh, I'm going to make this really good, and which you don't have to do, really. I mean, you could just put a picture on there, and
right.
But I try to make it really good. And so I have some videos on YouTube, and I have on my website you can listen to clips. But most of the stuff I have on CD. I'm probably this next album, I'd probably have it on CD, but I'd make it available as a download, or I'd just send it out to people or whatever. I don't know. It's different. I mean, it's a whole different business now.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure I know how the business works as far as making money, because I think about the only way you can make money now is.
This is the backup. Don't worry, it's just.
But I think the only way you can make money now is really playing live, and there isn't that much live opportunities. And now we're in this weird period of the virus where nobody's got gigs. I mean, everybody's gigs were canceled basically.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens next.
Well, I've already had musicians, like, I've seen them on, I've seen friends of mine on Facebook going, like, please buy some stuff from me, because I don't have any gigs,
See, and as I've mentioned, I kind of feel like I've been living in this place because my business tanked, more than 5 years, about 7 years ago, just kind of started to do a free fall. And I've been eking out hand to mouth for quite a while now without knowing where my next, set of bills is, how it's going to get paid. And it's been, and in some ways, quite freeing, and allowed me to really explore what do I really want to do, as opposed to what do I have to do today in some new ways. So I'm hopeful for humanity that maybe some of that will happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that you know what you want to do, but it's good that it's freeing and all that. But I don't want to be eking out a living myself.
Well, no, I don't either. I'm not. That part is not fun.
But
I don't think that just paying the bills at the expense of a happy life is and like what we're facing right now is the result.
Hey, speaking of paying those bills, do us all a favor and check out Sleeping Dragons Company on Etsy, specifically our Defense 5 oil at bit.ly/Defense5. That's the number 5. And Angel's Teespring t-shirt shop, specifically my t-shirt inspired by this show, #NotAmusician at bit.ly/I am not a musician.
We're at a real weird point in history right now, because first of all, we got this virus thing that's going around, and then the environment and
the economics now.
All the economics are. I mean, there's just this virus thing is going to kill the economics. I mean, a lot of stuff isn't even happening.
To me, the reason it's going to kill things is because it was already things have been running in the red so long, and so in some ways it's good that we face that and come up with systems and strategies. Is how I see it in our healthcare, in our education, in our economics. All these systems have been teetering for a while, and lo and behold, they come crashing down.
A friend of mine sent me an email about all the good things about the virus, which I really haven't.
The air clear in China.
It's pretty
astounding.
I haven't. That was one of them.
That's one of the.
I haven't really. Really.
It takes some time for us to process.
That was the word I looked for. But
integrate.
But anyway, I don't know. I mean, all I can do is do what I've always done and sort of have been compelled to do, and I can't, worry about everything.
Right.
But we have this political thing right now, and the virus, and it's an interesting weird sort of time. I mean, it's weird to go around and, you know, there's nothing to do because everything's closed or whatever, you know, like, you know, it's just very odd.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's where, like, maybe more of us will take, I think if we each took that notion that you seem to have had a lot of your life, which is to just take care of what, you know, expressing your authentic self and being a good person, you know, like in the context of being a good human. I think if we all did more of that, then things would turn out better.
And this thing about like being an artist or a creator or anything, I mean, not even, you know, an artist or a creator, but anybody who does anything that outside of like their
authentic self,
anything outside of like their job or something, it takes time, you know. Like as a musician, well, if you go to college and study music, you don't really have time to like be have a party animal or something, because you got to practice and you got to do this and that, you know, and that's true really your whole life. If you're a musician or an artist, you spend time doing your art or whatever it is you're doing. Maybe you have some other thing you do, some hobby or something, but that takes time. So not everybody has a lot of time. It'd be nice to have a lot of time. So I have some time right now. So that I'm going to be doing some things that I've been putting off.
Cool. So I have a 3 golden tickets question I like to ask, which is if you had 3 golden tickets, which were essentially unlimited wishes, no boundaries, but you had to use them today. You might get 3 more tomorrow, and one has to be for you personally, one has to be for humanity at large, and one can be for whatever you like, maybe your music or something else entirely. What would those wishes,
3 golden tickets
be used for today?
That's a really good question. Well, for myself, I would like the time, mostly the time and the money, probably. I mean, because it does take some expense. I can maybe persuade my friends to give me some money or something, but the time is probably more precious to you know, finish all that stuff I've started, all the projects I've done, at least have them all done. You know, not that I would ever quit being a musician or a composer. That's what I'd like. I mean, I'd like time, opportunity, money to do that. And then for humanity, I would just probably think, I wish we could all get along better. You know, like, I mean, it's so weird that we're so divided right now in this country, but that's not even close to like what it is. You know, I mean, other people are like killing each other, you know, for no reason really. I mean, you know, it's some ideological reason or something, like they don't like each other's religion or something. You know, that's just doesn't make any sense. I mean, why hasn't anybody learned anything in like all this time we've been, you know, on Earth? I mean,
can't we all just get along?
Well, we haven't learned anything. I mean, you know, like, you know, I mean, there's wars going on all over the world, and so why can't we just, you know, respect each other and get along and live? So that's a very abstract sort of thing. Like, I don't know how you do that. And then if I had any other choice, I'd like to see, I guess, maybe politically or right in election year, I'd like to see some change in some, at least in direction, in a lot of ways. My candidate isn't going to get in, I don't think, but I just think, and that partly has to do with the division of the country. I just don't get why, like my brother, who's a very smart person, I don't get him. I say I don't get it. Why are you know, supporting this person? And the answers he gives me don't make sense either. So like, I don't get it. So
it'd be for us to understand it better, or change the system.
I don't know. I don't know about this change in the system. I mean, I don't know that we change the system. we could change the president. I mean, I don't know. It's a very hard thing. We are so, we're so like two-sided, like there's one side, there's the other side, and it's about half and half, like, we're almost at an impasse. Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think we're going to find out, though. It'll get better or it'll get worse, at least. Or it'll stay the same. I mean, those are the only
it'll probably stay the same. I mean, I don't think anything could get really... Well, I've always been an optimist, and people say, well, did you hear about this? Then I mean, a lot, anytime there's something going on, like there's fires in Australia, or there's fires in Brazil, or there's some terrible storm that's coming, and it's like the worst storm ever, or whatever, hits Houston or something. Mm-hmm. And I've always said, people have these doomsday scenarios, like we're all gonna, it's the whole world's gonna go to hell.
The sky is falling.
Yeah, the whole world's going to hell, and nothing will ever be the same. And I always go, no, it's not that bad. It's it's easily fixed. It may even be just people's exaggerations. I've always been that way, but it's hard to remain that way sometimes. I mean,
is this guy fallen for you today a little bit?
Well,
It happens to all of us, I think.
Well, it's been a little bit weird lately, mm-hmm. because it affects me more. I mean, but yeah, doomsday scenarios, like. Yeah. Well, I always say, every generation in the history of the human race thought they were the last. They were the end.
When you mentioned how your heart-stopping incident led to you really jumping more into being your authentic creative self. So I'm hopeful that this, essentially a heart-stopping incident of sorts for our American society, at least, if not globally. It's hard to have a sense or perspective of that, but
it's global, though. I mean, it is
certainly,
global.
But I mean, as you mentioned, some places have already been living in that state for quite some time.
So it might help. I mean,
I'm hopeful. I think I'm optimistic,
because I've always thought every generation thought they were like the end.
Yeah.
I mean, every generation has had doomsday.
Chicken Little was written down in the 1800s, I like to remind myself, and it was what prevalent, verbal story, like it was well-known story before.
Yeah, I mean, you go back to the time of Jesus and John the Baptist. He thought the world was coming to an end, and before that, so everybody's always thought it was the end. And I've always poo-pooed that. I've always said, no. They're just over exaggerating. It's not that bad, so. Hopefully I'm not fooling myself, but I've always been eternal optimist as far as that goes.
Cool. Me too. In the long run. So I have a wrap-up question, unless there's something else you want to get to.
Give me the wrap-up.
Right. The wrap-up fun question is, if you were a hat, what kind of hat would you be?
If I was a hat... Well, I do have some hats, and I don't wear hats very often, but I have a couple of fedoras, like, because those are kind of cool, like something like Humphrey Bogart or something like that would wear. Mm-hmm. I do like that sort of era of movies and whatnot.
Sort of classic, classy, and
classy.
Simple and sophisticated.
So I guess a nice fedora, probably black. Because I have some ball caps, but mm-hmm. Those aren't like all that interesting. And I have one stocking hat which I never wear because I hardly ever go out when it's really cold.
It doesn't have to be a hat you have necessarily.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking of is there any hat that I really want? I mean, no.
Just a fun question to provoke some thought. So.
Yeah, a hat. I generally don't wear hats because I have good hair.
Right? I'd be my own hair. Thank you
Well,
very much.
I mean, I have silver hair, and it's I still have my hair. So,
Right.
and people often say you have good hair. So I don't know. I don't wear hats. I've never worn hats a lot, and people said, people always say, it's really cold out. You should have a hat on, and I go, no, it doesn't seem that cold to me. You know. But I think I'd just go with fedora. I can imagine, a Humphrey Bogart or somebody like that. Somebody that's kind of cool, that
Right.
Frank Sinatra or somebody.
Cool.
That I guess I'd go with that.
Yeah.
For lack of anything else.
Well, hey, thank you for joining me, Todd. It's been a pleasure just to talk about music, creativity, you and your life a little bit, get to know you a little more. I'd love to have another conversation in the future if you ever.
Anytime you want. I'm open to it anytime. It was fun. I tend to just start talking and, I can go off on a tangent. And
That's perfect. Me too. This was meant to be just a nice casual conversation. Yeah, let's both stay healthy and we'll see how this all unfolds.
All right, that wraps up my conversation with the talented and prolifically creative Todd Lowry. You can find him on the internet at toddlowry.com. That's TODDLOWRY.com, 2 Ds. You can also find him on Facebook, and you can find out more about me and my work on this and other subjects with a quick search for Angel Lilly or at angellilly.com. That's with 4 L's. I encourage you to check out the Authentic Action School on Facebook or at AuthenticActionSchool.com. Sign up to be on our mailing list so you can keep up with all the exciting things we're getting into this season and into the future. I appreciate your attention today. Thank you for listening. As always, I welcome your questions, comments, and suggestions. I wish you lightheartedness, wellness, and joy. Don't forget to play every day and drive forward.